Oh, hey, how's it going, Vicky?
Good. All right. Well, good evening, everybody, or whatever your time zone is. Thank you for joining us for another episode of How Would You Slice That? You probably know me because you're on my YouTube channel. I'm Vicky Soma, and with me again is my co-host Lawrence Nightingale. You might want to mute the video.
Me?
Oh, maybe it's me. Yep. Like just like with 3D printing, you're learning a lot of things with live streaming. And last time I learned to mute my cell phone and also turn off Teams so people from work aren't trying to chat with me while I'm doing this. And tonight I learned to also pause the YouTube video. All right. Well, anyways, with me tonight is my co-host Dr. Lawrence Nightingale, and if you haven't met him yet, he is a educator and 3D printing advocate from Alexandria, Virginia, which is close to me in Occoquan, and he's facilitated the instruction of 3D printing for over 500 people in the Northern Virginia area. Lawrence been 3D printing for 11 years, so he trumps me. His first platform was an early wood frame Prusa i3, and he's worked with Arduino, Duet, and Tri-Gorilla-based Delta printer platforms. Most recently, he founded a 3D printing lab using the Railcore platforms. Lawrence was a presenter at the National Maker Faire in Washington, D.C., and he's done extensive research on the effect of 3D printing on community college students. And most recently, Lawrence has decked the halls. And so this year he had a Christmas tree that featured fully 3D printed ornaments. There you go.
Thank you for that introduction, Vicky. Yes, every single ornament was 3D printed. Nothing store-bought, none of that ceramic stuff. It was a really fun Christmas. Santa's workshop was pretty busy. And my co-host is Vicky Soma. Vicky Soma is a leader in the 3D printing world. She is an innovator in fused deposition modeling. She was a very early adopter of multicolor 3D printing, using very, very technical designs and complex objects. She, as I said, is a community leader in 3D printing. She was instrumental in orchestrating the East Coast Rip Prep Festival, which is now being shifted to 3D Printopia, 3D printing festival that's going to be taking place this coming fall. She is a designer and builder of TV props, as seen on the Hallmark Channel. One of Vicky's 3D printed objects was an actual character in a Hollywood production. So good to see you again, Vicky. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. I've been really enthralled with learning the multicolor printing with my new little Bamboo A1 Mini and learning Bamboo Studio.
You know what? It is a small world, but then again, it's a big old globe. I've got a Bamboo Mini as well, and I've been enjoying my unit, and that is what I use to 3D print my Christmas ornaments. As a matter of fact.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and so. Go ahead.
I was going to say that Tessa Nessie from Sparky Face 5, she said that this new surge in multicolor printing has made her fall in love with FFF and FDM again.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I ever fell out of love with FFF FDM, but it's definitely galvanized my affection for it.
Yeah, I would agree. Once we got the opportunity to easily do multicolor, it really pulls people's imagination into things, and they can really project onto the platforms what it is they want to do. It's a opportunity to be creative and to really come close to producing exactly what you have in your mind as a 3D printed object. Yeah. So it's a big step. I'm a fan of the A1 Mini for its reliability. I do not own any of the other Bamboo platforms, but for this is not endorsed by Bamboo in anywhere, but for the cost to value, I've been very pleased with it. Very pleased with it.
Guess what? Tessa from Sparky Face 5 just joined after I summoned her.
Hello.
Unknowingly.
Absolutely. So should we introduce our guest?
Yes, I think so. And real quick, tonight's topic, we are going to be talking about Delta printers and Core XYs and belt printers. And it's three types of printers that I've never used. So I'm looking forward to learning about this. And our guest has hands-on experience with all these printer types. Lawrence, you want to talk about our guest?
That's right. Our guest tonight is Paul Chase. Paul is a multi-dimensional fused deposition modeling enthusiast. Paul has bought and has built and used all matter 3D printers, as we said before, and including Core XY, Prusa style, i3 style, Deltas, and belt printers. He has led 3D printing build groups for over 7 years, and he is an early adopter of the Duet hardware and firmware methodology. Paul joins us today to talk about the relationship between mechanical platforms and the printing process. He's also going to show us off some of his machines and talk about how he does his practice of 3D printing. So without any further ado, Paul Chase.
Hey, Paul.
There he is.
Hey, everyone. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good to see you again.
Yes, it is. It's really good to see you too. Welcome. Well, so, as it stands, we want to give you the platform, just talk briefly about, your most interesting platforms and what's unique about them.
So I always loved, I've been building printers. When I started, you could really only buy kits of printers. My first was a Prusa Mendel. But as soon as I got that working reasonably well, someone came out with the original Rostock, one of the first Delta printers. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to build and improve on that because they're really cool looking. And
yes,
it's really just a nice form factor for printing taller things especially, but it's just much cleaner and easier to design. Like if you look at any 3D printer you have, the X and Y axis don't really look alike. They're probably using belts, but the Z is using rods. Mm-hmm. You look on a Delta bot, the A, B, and C towers are all just identical.
Wow, and the way that those products come out, yes, as you're talking about raising your Z on a core, let's say on a Core XY, that Z is very, very uniform, but the X and Y is full of noise, and that's really one of the things that people pick up on when they are printing.
Yeah, like the downsides to both the Core XY and the Deltas is that they're much more mechanically complex than say the i3 style. I think sort of the original Prusa i3, moving the bed and then the X riding on the Z gantry. It's got to be the most, the belts are as short as they can possibly be. There's hardly any frame for the amount of force that it's countering. It's just a really it's a very good bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Not that Deltas or Core XYs are bad machines. It's just they need to be much higher quality to have the same print quality.
Mm-hmm. Right. We were and me and Vicky were just having a conversation about that. As a matter of fact, the Prusa the Bamboo A1 Mini is a Prusa style with short belts and short travel and good sturdy hardware.
I like the heavy bed. The part that's moving back and forth the most is at the lowest point of the printer. It's the easiest place to brace it. They still need the input shaping to, dampen down the vibrations, but since that's available now, there's no detriment to going fast.
Really,
I have I have the Bamboo Carbon, but not the. I have only seen the Mini. I haven't seen the A1 in.
You haven't seen the actual A1 yet. Okay, and so it sounds like you're getting started on something of a 3D printing museum there.
I love your Maker Gear cup.
Oh, shout out to Maker Gear. They gave me a free cup.
There we go.
I don't even remember when that was.
My Maker Gear cup that I got with my M3 ID had a untimely demise. I mean, I guess it was not untimely. It was 3 years. So the Virginia Tech 3D printing lab, they have a Maker Gear. They gave me their coffee cup. I was so excited. And then my brother dropped it. So I've already damaged 2 of them.
Man, easy come, easy go, Vicky. I mean, I guess we have your next project is maybe getting a Pet G and print one up. One never knows.
You could.
Yeah, yeah. So Paul, you've done. How do you think about slicing, and when it comes to the Delta versus the Prusa style printer, right? You talked about the Z differences.
So it's interesting how the printers are built, and like if you look at the angled belt printers, they don't really know that they're angled.
Mm-hmm.
Core XY knows that it's a Core XY and does the kinematic transformation on the printer hardware, and so does the Delta. So when you slice something for a Delta on the slicer side, there's really no changes, except on Delta, traditionally, the origin 0 point is in the middle of the printer.
Mm-hmm.
Since you have a circle, you might as well. There's no reason you couldn't put the origin over here outside of the print area. It's just, it seems silly to have the origin not be anywhere you could print.
Right.
But so all of the translation from XYZ to tower ABC heights is done on the printer itself, which is why Deltas they had a rough start because Arduino, like the 8-bit hardware, just really couldn't handle the calculations very well.
Right.
Moving Deltas to ARM, pretty necessary.
Right. And so the firmware to make things really kind of come out and produce well, the kinematics that's embedded on the actual board of the machines, that is where things really kind of separate themselves between, let's say, a Core XY and a Delta, is what you're saying. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, for people who are new and may not know the differences of these machines, it might be advantageous or beneficial to kind of see them. And I think I heard a rumor that you're mobile, Paul, and that you have some machines to show us. And maybe you can show us the differences.
I can flip the camera around and show off. Trying not to be, hugely. Now I gotta flip.
Or we could lose you.
Or, yep, the device is not connected.
That's all right. Can you hear me?
Yep, I sure can. So
okay.
Here, I'm going to pull up a preview image. And Lawrence, you're such a good teacher while we work out those technical difficulties. Maybe you can just explain. Here's the just silhouettes of the 3 different printer types that we're going to be talking today. So,
all right. Yeah. Absolutely. So on the top here, on the top right is what we consider a Core XY. A Core XY printer has the X and the Y axes working off of a pair of belts. Usually 2 motors are located on 2 corners of the Core XY machine. Those 2 motors move the belts around in combination. They move the print head on the X and Y axis by the X reducing its length and the Y increasing its length, almost in the same way that our muscles expand and contract in order to move our limbs. So with the Core XY, what you can think of is that it's really 2 motors moving the print head in conjunction, and then the Z height moves up and down. And so on a Core XY, one of the things that really is that people like about Core XY is the opportunity for speed, substantial speed, and also reliability. You can build a lot of strength around those Core XY platforms on the X and Y axes. Next is the Delta printers. The second one down is the Delta printer, and Paul is back. The Delta printer, you have your X, your Y, and your Z. They're arranged in a triangle. A triangle, the symbol for triangle is also known as delta in the Greek letters, and that's where we're at. Then, of course, the belt printer Paul will show us as well.
All right, y'all good, Paul? No worries.
Yeah, I was trying to flip the camera around. I got to go through the settings a bit. So, this is my oldest 3D printer that I still use regularly. I called the first one Bertha. This is not the first Delta I made. This is how we're printing, and you have the hot end effector down here, extruders right up here, but it's all controlled by these motors going up and down. So the motors are actually stationary at the top, And the original idea with the Delta is same as the original idea with the Core XY. The hot end effector is extremely lightweight and can move very rapidly. I'm having this guy run slow just because it can do this silently. If it runs at full speed, it's roughly twice as fast. It's still not as fast as the Bamboos, but it's blows out of the water any of the older 3D printer models. And this has obviously been quite a bit of evolution. Duet actually made a smart effector for it that has a strain gauge for the leveling, so solved a lot of problems. This one actually has a like the part ejection system on it, because I built this during the pandemic, and this thing printed off about 1 million of the face shields. It's like kind of see the echoes in the
is that your
build service.
PrintShift then?
So I didn't. The PrintShift came later. I have that guy, but I figured we'd look at the Core XY and belt printer at the same time because I have a CR30 here.
Okay.
Creality's 3D print mill.
Is it possible?
It's funny. It's a. Sorry.
Is it possible that this is the only operating Creality CR30 in the wild? Creality made these, and then they had it. Looks like they had a little bit of a problem. Can you still buy one of these? It seems like he's got a little bit of resistance. Either that or I've dropped off.
Oh no, you're here.
Okay.
But now I'm feel vindicated. So viewers, earlier today, I sent Paul an email. I'm like, he was worried that he might have a child come in, a special guest. I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. And I said, the same goes for technical difficulties.
There you go.
We're here for some community time. We're here to have fun. So we're just going to go with it. Mike from the chat says that his CR30 works most of the time.
Okay, great.
So
wonderful. Yeah, and there was another company that came out with a belt printer, but they actually went out of business right after that, and I can't recall who that was. But as we see here,
I have one of those too.
Okay. Good.
So this is printing at a 45-degree angle.
You know, one thing I'm picking up on with this belt printer, though, Paul, is the fact that X-axis looks pretty doggone heavy going up and down like that. So it doesn't seem to lend itself
I'm
to
losing
speed.
Stream. I think the belt printer is being noisy electrically or something. The phone seems to die every time I get too close to it.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right. So I had a question.
Trying to show off, but
there it is, the baby belt.
So this is actually the Rob Minks baby belt design, which is a much.
Oh.
The baby belt.
I'm sure he's going to say wonderful, glowing things, particularly since Rob is in the chat.
The baby belt is oh, there he is. Good. Baby belt's a wonderful design. Almost fully 3D printable with what we call vitamins. I'm not sure if people call them vitamins.
This guy does work very well. It's just, for some reason we keep losing signal out there.
That's all right. That's all right.
But so on a belt printer, this is your Z motor, and the Z motor operates the belt. And that maybe doesn't make sense in terms of Z is normally height, but if you look at how this prints, it prints one layer at a time. So every time the belt advances, it's printing the next layer down. So your X is your X as normal, and the Y is actually this. So I call this the unicorn, where you have the unsupported Y axis. And for a printer of this size, it's totally fine. The CR30 uses a square frame with the motors mounted up top in a Core XY configuration. I do have the Prusa XL here that's the Core XY as well. Check out the belts on that.
Right, it's one big belt for everything, right?
So two belts, actually.
Okay.
So most Core XYs now are arranged into a top belt and a bottom belt. And so this belt comes around and all the way back to this motor in the corner. The top belt is your right corner motor, and the bottom belt, you can trace it, comes around up to the front, all the way to the back, around to the motor, to the other side, all the way back up to this guy. Now, so the belt is twice the length of the x-axis and twice the length of the y-axis, basically, which is why all Core XY machines have input shaping, because there's a lot of vibration introduced just by this belt being a little bit springy. So if you don't have good input shaping on your Core XY, you're going to have poor quality prints. Just
an FYI on that.
And the bamboo is basically the same way, where you have the lower belt connected to the left motor. So I guess it's backwards, but not like that makes a difference. Then the second motor is mounted higher, and this belt comes up all the way behind across the top.
Wow.
Similarly, just
so Paul, what would you say you like the Core XY machines as far as production is concerned? Why would somebody prefer a Core XY over a Delta, let's say?
the main benefit of both is going to be speed. The Deltas, so the big problem with the Delta is that your motor is way up here. The belt is very long, just like the Core XY. Then you have two sets of joints before you get to your effector, parallel times 3. So if you're not using very high quality components on the Delta, it's just not going to work. On the Core XY machines, you have the long belts, but everything can be mounted to a nice flat rigid frame. It's very easy to make a 2D frame that's quite strong, and there's a lot of bearings, but bearings are, even the inexpensive bearings are high enough precision, so you don't have to worry about that as much.
Okay.
I'd really like to throw some belts on these guys so that we can eject parts from them so that it can keep printing once it's done with its first print. But I haven't gotten around to that yet. That's the real joy of the belt printers, is it doesn't print one thing, it prints a whole bunch. If you want to switch to the computer, it'll show it's printing on the CR30.
Okay, sure.
I can try and roll this camera around without killing it.
All right.
Goodness.
Okay, so you want your screen or just you?
Just go with the screen because I'll show off what's going on in the.
Okay.
Funny things about slicing, since this is the slicing channel. So this is what's printing on the CR30, this entire volume. You can see what's currently there is about that much.
Oh.
Okay.
And it's going to finish printing that part.
The belt printer.
So it'll finish printing that part, and then without missing a beat, it's going to start printing the next part, and it's going to start printing the next part. And I can just continue to queuing up parts because with the infinitely long Z, I never have to stop to clear my bed.
And
what slicer is this?
I'm sorry, this is Idea Maker. They make one of the best belt slicers in my experience. Creality makes their own. I think I used it once. I don't think it's going to happen again.
Gotcha.
Is this what you would use with the baby belt too?
Yes, I have a profile for the baby belt. I used to use actually just Prusa slicer. I have belt printer profiles in here, but you have to go through a few hoops to use Prusa slicer. Namely, you have to angle your model and then slice it and then post-process it. So this is the weird thing of, this is what you'd expect the G-code to generate, but this is not what is actually sent to the printer. This is a fake view. What the printer is actually seeing are these parts. Let me rotate all the way around. You can see they're actually angled 45 degrees, just
Oh,
like the
I
printer
see.
itself.
Oh
Because the
my
printer
gosh.
does not understand that it's not Cartesian. It thinks everything's XYZ because we have all the printer hardware to run XYZ.
Paul, do you think that that there's not more attempts to make belt printers on the same level that we've got other Cartesians because of the slicing software? You already talked about the firmware, but what about the slicing software? Like, right, as you're talking about it, I'm having a difficult time telling myself that I would just jump into this water and pursue belt slicing.
I mean, there's problems even with the current belt slicing software in terms of when you asked it to add a brim, because it's doing this strange advancing Z, it doesn't have the same idea of drawing a brim around your parts. So thin, narrow things have a tendency to fall over, and belt printers tend to have adhesion problems because of that. What we really like is, you see there's this line here at the very start. That's basically just the purge line, but you could also imagine doing more purge lines along your whole part to give it better bed adhesion. But whereas slicing, like, 3D printers have come a long way and hardware has improved a lot. Really, like the Core XY system is a huge hardware improvement. But where 3D printing's gotten so much easier is in the slicing.
Right. But except for this example. But
I think that
thing,
regular Cartesian machines have come a long way, and I think that they have a bit farther to go, but the angled belt printers, the slicing has yet to really catch up.
What it's interesting that you say that. One of the things about that I always have thought about how 3D printing has and will catch on is that we wind up having to come up with like the ultimate app for using 3D printers. And so and we were talking about a belt printer, the strength of it is that you can print something that is 2 feet long in one go. And so I think probably the reason that we're lagging right now is that everything on your STL repositories, things of that nature, they're all sliced up and they're for smaller beds, right? Making an object that's 2 or 3 feet long has not yet made itself something that people just have to have.
Well, but even this the Saturn V model, where I'm printing one chunk of it, literally half of the bottom, it's already sliced up because there aren't very many printers tall enough to print the whole thing at once.
Right.
My Delta actually is, and I could go in and download these files and join them together in Tinkercad or whatnot, but it is presented such to fit all the existing printers. But even, like, I don't focus so much on printing really long things or really large things. It's more just being able to print continuously without attending my own printer.
I see. And so
might, sorry.
Go ahead. Vicky.
It just might be a nice little segue into PrintShift, right? Where you're turning any conventional 3D printer into a conveyor system.
So I've been trying to add conveyor belts to the printers, because then you can just keep sending it prints. And the can fire is not connected. If you hook these guys up to Octoprint, then you can actually just queue up a whole bunch of prints and start printing. I think that whole corner of my basement has just lost all of its Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Hey,
it's related.
let me switch back to the camera on here, and I'll show what the PrintShift is capable of, at least in... I just have this guy snuck over here. Again, we gotta switch the camera around. I feel like I'm missing an easy setting for doing this, but so this is the latest iteration of the PrintShift, which I've tried to brand. And it's just a regular Prusa Mini with a conveyor belt attached. If you're printing parts on it, when it's done printing the parts, you can automatically eject them and then be ready to print again. So if anybody remembers from Earth, we're printing all these rocket nozzles.
Yeah.
And yes, you could print probably, well, maybe 9 of them on the bed at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then every 2-3 hours, come down, clear your bed, start another print. Or you run the ejector.
Right.
It's
And
just
so,
activated.
So yeah, the great thing about that is that all of a sudden now you can manufacture things on a high level. You can even make things for a group of people, a large group of people who might be maybe attending a conference or name tags or things of that nature. So the PrintShift is really a great opportunity for people who are getting into 3D printing or 3D printing enthusiasts and are looking for a way to maybe even find, do a cottage type of business or to promote their own outlets like we're doing here on how to slice that.
Into the actual print cave. But just on a...
Okay. And so you sell
Basically,
these kits,
this is...
Paul?
I'm not selling the kits. I'm just throwing it up on the GitHub so anyone can print and install your own. It's really just this part and this part, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
These. At the end of the print, the Z-axis rising up pulls on this string, which actuates this guy, and then engages this little gear. And this gear has what's called a sprag clutch. It's a one-way clutch. So when the printer is done, it rolls the bed back and forth, and the gear spins freely backwards, but moves the bed forwards when it advances.
Huh.
And so the only way we actually control that is with special G-code in the slicer. So I have a special Prusa Mini profile that then, allows me to eject the part and even print continuously.
I see.
I wouldn't mind selling stuff and getting rich off of it, but honestly, I feel like the hassle is probably better off giving stuff away so that, people can then improve the machines. The biggest problem with the belt printers is really the belt, which maybe is kind of obvious, but getting the belt to stay flat. And there's various solutions. High tension. I'm using a magnetic bed on there, using the Prusa's magnets to help hold it down, but it's not quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a good flexible surface to print on is, I think, ongoing, and the more people that are working on it, the better that'll be.
I see.
If I just go to the...
Hey, Paul, I have your YouTube video of ejecting at Earth. You want me to show that?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
But so just, if you look at the...
I think I have it queued up right to like the moment of drama, maybe.
Yeah. So if you notice, there's nothing in between the arms of the printer, and it likes to eat parts. So you really want to print the shield so it doesn't eat your parts.
I see.
I mean, you don't really have to, but...
And so I'm still not quite picking up. So once your print is done, that's when the Z goes all the way up and the string gets tense, and that is what ejects your parts.
Yep. So the start G code is very special. It lifts the Z all the way up to pull the string and engage the gear. And then we'll just move the Y bed back and forth until the part's ejected. The one thing that this is missing that I'd really prefer to add, I mean, it does have a Raspberry Pi on there for Octoprint, queuing up prints, but I'd really like to add the camera to the Pi and the camera be smart enough to say, hey, there's something on the bed, I'm not going to start the print. And that functionality is actually being developed. It's already several plugins. I forget, it's literally called Clear Bed. But
almost
basically,
like an AI type of thing.
When you have your belt printer, if your print fails, you can eject the failure and try the print again.
Mm-hmm. Real manufacturing tech capability is what you're talking about.
You're really turning the printer from a prototyping tool into a manufacturing tool. And I've been making hydroponic stuff with it. I have a few of these somewhere.
Uh-oh, somebody's going to have some really big potatoes.
I mean, we were selling about 1,000 of these a month, and they're very simple little parts to block the little ports on your aero garden. But
there you go.
How many of them can you print at once, and how quickly? And with the PrintShift, it's like I can have 4 printers running, and I've never measured like probably 300 or 400 a day.
Wow,
it was really hilarious. One of my filament out sensors broke, and I didn't notice until it ran out of filament. It was just, I think it printed for 3 or 4 days with no filament, because I was just like, man, I didn't even check on it because they were just, the other ones were still running.
How amazingly smooth. No print failures, no problems, no filaments. Yeah. That's the way it goes sometimes.
The printer never asked for attention, and I never gave any, which...
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
You live and you learn. But it's also like, printers are only recently becoming reliable enough that the belt printers are making a lot more sense. Like, you really need a printer that will fail every 1,000 prints, not every 100 prints. And I think we're definitely in that range with the higher end printers.
Absolutely.
Paul, we have a viewer question wanting to know more about what the parts are used for in hydroponics.
So if you're running an aero garden, you have the little, I think I have, basically it blocks some of the holes that the pods would go into, and that little probe will actually block the water flow, so you get higher water flow to fewer plants. So if you want to run, when the plants get older,
like after you've already taken your seedlings out, put them in something else.
So you'll start, I think you can start 7 or 8 plants, and then as they get larger, you'll move some, put more in.
And you plug
it's just to block the water holes.
Right, more water for bigger plants, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very cool, very cool. So we talked about the slicer, right? We talked about the slicing for belt printers. Talked about how height affects things. Talked about speed. And we talked about your PrintShift experiment that we are all quality control for. Can't wait for that.
And we also talked about your Maker Gear Cup.
Yes. What else do you got coming up, Paul?
So I hang out at the makerspace nearby. I'm in Fairfax City, Nova Labs, and they're actually going to fire up a maker fair this year again. I lost the announcement of exactly when it is. You guys got the...
I'm pulling it up. June 9th, 2024 at 10 a.m.
So that is the big thing we're looking forward to.
Let me throw this up on the
and
screen.
is it going to be at Nova Labs, or is it going to be, where's it going to be?
We're actually partnering with Arlington, so it's going to be in a larger facility. We don't think our makerspace is big enough for the whole of a maker fair.
Okay. City of Alexandria High School. It's going to be at the old I guess I shouldn't say the old, but it's at the City of Alexandria High School, one of the most historical high schools in the Northern Virginia area. That is that's going to be great.
But it's the triumphant return of Maker Faire Nova, so we're all excited about that.
Yes, indeed. And it's just going to be for one day this year?
Just one day? All of the Maker Faire Novas were only one day, which...
Yes.
I guess you were right. You're right.
It's a full day. I'd prefer to have it Saturday and Sunday, but then it's hard to get the boost manning. But I will try to get more impressive Delta bots out there, and we'll see what we can do.
Man, you're making me want to go in my basement and start putting together my printers again.
Well, this is the beauty, for me, at least. Maker Faire Nova is it's such a great event. And it was probably like a pivotal event in my 3D printing trajectory. But I like having come up with a project, and then you have that deadline that you need to finish it by. And I think kudos to Maker Faire Nova. I did a table 5 years in a row. I'm definitely doing one in June.
Awesome.
I'm thinking of making something with a filament poop from the Bamboo Mini.
Nice.
So what I would say, I like, there's been times where I do my proposal to Maker Faire Nova. Like 1 year I did upcycling and 3D printing.
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
so I did, I think, 9 different projects. But when I did my proposal, I literally sent them a picture of a whole bunch of trash. That I was like, I'm going to upcycle this. And they believed me and they trusted me. And I made it work. But I would say, I mean, I can't talk highly enough about Maker Faire Nova. And everybody knows I love 3D Printopia and the East Coast Rip Rap Festival. But I will always be indebted to Maker Faire Nova for bringing me into this 3D printing community and making me feel fully welcome. And yeah, I don't know. So
that is spectacular, Paul. Like I from my perspective, I'm thinking that I participated with Maker Faire Nova twice, both times with Nova Labs. So the last time we did it, I had I was printing a drum on my tall Delta. I'm not sure whose Delta was taller, yours or mine. But I'm gonna go ahead and give you the height. I'm gonna give you the height crown because I'm not gonna compete. But
I think I have a 7-foot ceiling here, so that's about my limit in the basement. But
you think you might get one that tall? Now but still though, I mean, the great thing about something like Maker Faire Nova and the East Coast Rip Rap Festival and the Nation of Makers events is that to be able to show off the hardware and show off our projects. That's like what you're saying, Vicky. It's really a great opportunity to kind of put ourselves in a position to advance things, even our own practices, and show people what's possible with the knowledge that really we've kind of amassed collectively, as part of a technical community. Do you have any sponsors yet?
I don't think there's any sponsors in there. Who is all in there? Only so the Nova Labs is sponsoring it because it's, of
course,
90% our thing. But Make is also going to sponsor us and helping out with that. But I don't think we have any other big sponsors. We are accepting applications for that.
Oh, you are?
And the call for makers is open. And I think I want to say April 14th is the final day that you can say you're going to make something or propose a booth. But I always use it as a way to advance whatever I'm working on and try and get the nicest thing. Same thing I do for 3D Printopia now. Like, it's a good goal to get your something ready for.
Got you. Yeah,
get you engaged.
I have to agree with that. I have to agree with that 100%. Oh my goodness! Wow, man. We thought the pandemic killed it, but no, it's coming back. This is great.
It's been hard to find a space and times that work for, like, this area is so crowded already that it's there's so many things we're dodging around. But yeah, I'm glad to see it back.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah,
me too.
I'll say, absolutely. Okay. So now, are we at the point? Is there something? Can you take us from beginning to end on your slicing for, like, let's say your belt printer mini or what have you? Can you show us how you take something like a project from beginning to end on one of those printers, Paul?
Sure.
I think we had a couple STLs that we had considered.
Close this guy.
And you say this is on Idea Maker Slicer, right?
Yes.
Is that a proprietary one? You have to buy that, or is that open source?
It is free, but it is made by Raise 3D. I don't believe that it's open source.
Raise 3D. Okay.
Which is odd that they do such a good job supporting for angled slicing, but let's see what we have. So this is a, I'm trying to model of the SpaceX's large rocket.
Okay.
So this came in actually perfectly. Now, so on a belt printer, the belt is running this length. You can see how long the Z is, pretending to be infinite. The actual printer, it really doesn't make a difference, but I'm always going to make sure that I line my parts up so that they're in line with the belt. This is narrow enough that's not going to be an issue, but that helps reduce the side-to-side force, which is what sometimes causes your print to get nice and tall and then fall over, because the belts are just not as rigid as a fixed build plate.
Oof, okay.
Half section. We might as well throw a few of these models in there.
I noticed that you're bringing them in one by one. Some slicers that a lot of us are used to, you can bring in several pieces all at once and it will automate. But you just went through and told us why that's probably a bad thing.
I mean, the reason I'm not doing multiple is because I don't know what these are.
Okay.
But like, you know, if we just grab 5, you can definitely open in 5, and it'll actually line them up for you.
Oh, well, there you go. All right. I was wondering about that aspect. Okay.
We'll get rid of this guy. But see, we have the Raptor engine here. And that's the thrust puck. But how many of those do we need?
Ah, I see.
Do you guys remember? It's 33, right?
I don't recall.
Let me get out my handy dandy reference guide. I think it's 35.6. I'm kidding. 33 looks like it would probably work.
Well, it's only letting me duplicate 5 at a time, oddly. But so this is especially where printing an entire plate full of these and one fails going to cause problems. If I print an entire stream of these and one fails, if I need 33, I might just print 35 and be like, well, I'll assume I'll get enough of those out. And you can rearrange and move these all around. The nice part about doing this in the slicer is that I don't need any software to run the printer. I can just stick this on an SD card and it will print all the models in sequence. But if I want to print only one of these models, you know, I can't. It's just one monolithic G-code file. A lot of times I'll use the Octoprint hooked up to it, and then I'll use an Octoprint queuing plugin. So I'll print, you know, I'll make one slice of my Raptor engine and then tell it to print me 35 copies of those.
Right.
But
right, and you know, you just mentioned something that, you know, something that I struggle with in my practice. Like you mentioned an Octoprint plugin. You know, when we start getting into those, when we start getting into plugins and things that are I'm not saying to say outside of standard, but plugins, and like you probably got that from GitHub, right?
Well, so it came from the Octoprint plugin library.
It did. Okay.
Later.
Well, good. Okay, that might make it a little bit easier. I am not one who has joined the Octoprint family personally. I'm still actually I guess I'm a Bamboo Lab person right now, but I'm a Duet person more likely.
But so like, how many Nova Labs rockets do I want? I can just keep clicking this plus button until I get tired.
I see.
I can even, this is a continuous print plugin.
Got it.
Save that. And I can actually save these jobs as well. So if I make something like the SpaceX, the Super Heavies, or the Starship, I'm going to want to make more than one of those. So I'll queue up all the individual sliced files and then print them all at once. When you're doing this way in Idea Maker, every slicer or every model is going to have the same settings. And you can, just a quick through their settings, there's very little that's special for the belt. Except for here you have the belt offset, and then abilities to do belt rafts and belt walls to help improve your adhesion.
Interesting.
So
what's a belt wrap?
basically the same as your normal raft.
Raft. Oh, I
Slice
thought you
weakness.
said raft. I thought you said
Oh, sorry.
RAP, but no, belt raft. I gotcha. Very good.
So if you're running a belt printer where the belt is a little bit weak and wobbly, which they're all a little on that spectrum.
Yep.
Well, that was
Did it crash?
yeah, it did. I don't normally print with a raft, and I can't tell you that's why, but
just go about your standard way to go about doing it. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's
Yeah, I was going to ask if it has the same challenges with the raft that you were mentioning with the brim, but maybe so.
Well, so it has, so you can't put a normal brim on, but you can put in, it does have the option for the special, the belt wall as well, which is basically the same idea, I think.
I gotcha. So with the raft, it would lay down a super thick layer, almost like what the MakerBots used to do when they didn't have a printed.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have a heated bed. Yeah.
Well, it was when your bed is not very level and we didn't have automated bed leveling, the raft was huge.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is slicing just as normal and even providing support material. You can turn off the supports, and the supports are straight up and down, but when we look at how we're actually going to print.
Nice. Oh, there we go.
You can see the angles coming in.
This is a good slicer. Wow. So hold on for a second. Go back up. Keep going with your your layer by layer. Because it seems like this one was. There you go. What I like about this is that this is like you're doing two objects and one quote unquote Z height at the beginning of the you're right there. I find that really fascinating. You got this is one Z layer that you got right here. So
it's going to be printing this guy, and then we'll jump over.
Yeah.
Print the tip of this guy, and then jump back.
Right. Huh. And that would be just one example where you might have a little bit of exposure on print failures, but everything else not so much.
Well, even if there's a print failure, it was unlikely to affect the previous print.
Yes.
Not impossible. And you can even, like when I'm generally doing mass manufacturing, I will stagger things.
Okay.
Because I don't like when my parts are too close to each other, and it seems silly to get them too close on a belt printer.
Yeah.
So Paul, that first piece on the far left, or not the first piece, but I guess the most recent piece.
So it does print them in reverse order of you adding them, which is a little odd and not generally an issue, but you know. It's just how they choose to add things. Sorry, what are you saying, Vicky?
Those little delicate areas at the tippy top, do you need to do anything with speed to slow it down? Or I guess it'd be advantageous to have the next part printing so it's kind of...
So only the last one is actually going to be, I guess, the last two back and forth in each other.
Gotcha. No, but she's talking about the things at the top of this object right here. Like they look a little bit...
often like with spires or something like that.
But like this spire one, it'll have plenty of time for the layer to cool because it's busy doing the rest of this.
Yeah.
So usually I see problems when the previous layer has not cooled sufficiently to print on top of it. So for the end, I would like to see the printer do a little pause for these last two, but you shouldn't see any problems with the others.
I see.
Would you put in that pause, or would you add another piece?
So if you add another piece behind it or rearrange the parts, you could basically have that pause in there because it would be busy printing part of the other object.
Going back and forth, yeah.
So if
we remove this guy, put him back here instead.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
You can kind of see.
Yeah. Now when it's printing that, it would be doing the natural cooling by.
But I believe it does have temperature. There is a setting in here somewhere where you can slow down the layer. You set the minimum time for a layer.
Yes.
So if the layer is too small, where it won't spend enough time for it to cool, it will actually slow down before it goes on.
Right. Paul, what materials do you commonly use, and do they have very much effect on how you print on the belt slicer?
Well, PLA has the lowest shrinkage of any of the materials we use, and PETG is close behind, so it tends to have fewer problems.
Okay. Oh,
if you're trying to print really long parts, like if you do want to print a 3-foot sword all at once, if you're printing on a belt printer, it's going to slowly curl up.
Got you.
What most people do is they cut the sword in half and they print both halves of it. You can even do one after the other. And if you're printing in something like an ABS where there's a lot of shrinkage, you'll have to be forcing them back together. But usually it's not enough of a problem to make a difference. On the CR30, this front section of the bed is heated, and the second section of the bed, about half and half, is not heated, but it's still held flat. So the parts have a long time to cool very slowly, and also a long time that they're heated, where you're only ever printing on this part of the bed, on one line of the bed, but you're keeping it hot as you go down. And then by the time it gets to the end where the roller is, the part should be cold enough that it peels off easily.
Is there a way to? I'm sure there's a way to do it. Just nobody's done it yet. But is there a way to mathematically put into your slicer, if we got something that's 2 feet, you can kind of calculate that shrinkage to accommodate for that curling and get things straight?
I haven't seen anything that's compensating for individual plastics in the slicer. I feel like, and that's something that would be useful on normal Cartesian machines as well.
Yes, yeah.
Using a heated chamber to keep your entire ABS part hot is good, but it's still going to shrink when it cools. It's nice that it shrinks all at once and doesn't delaminate, but you're still getting a part that's a little smaller than you asked for.
Right.
I'm not sure.
I mean that's probably the next windmill to go attack in 3D printing.
I want to say that's a problem with the metal injection molding printers. I think that's like you print your part quite a bit larger, and then they're like, because it doesn't shrink uniformly, it shrinks based on how thick the mass is. So.
And it makes the concept of precision engineering more challenging when we have those kind of those shrinkage issues. Yeah, but I also imagine that all methods of manufacturing have challenges aligned with that kind of thing.
I mean, there is such a thing as a manufacturing engineer, and it's not the same as the product designer or the mechanical engineer. It's there's a lot of complexities, and 3D printing, like, it doesn't really avoid any of them. It's just generally we can ignore a lot of the small ones. And we're getting better and better and ignoring less and less and getting better and better parts out of it.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks for showing us the slicer.
I've never seen Idea Maker before.
Yeah. and giving us a close up of some of your menagerie, I should say, is probably a better word, of 3D printers. Of all the platforms that you have been working on, because you've worked on them all, you've worked
pretty
on
much.
Them all. Which one has been the most rewarding for you to work on?
I mean, I've spent the most time on the Prusa minis, mainly for the PrintShift thing, and modifying the minis to do things that a mini really shouldn't do. It's nice when you're using such a popular machine because so many companies make kits. I've got a few with Bondtech extruders, Revos. I threw an orbiter on one just because someone sent me an orbiter. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this? Slap it on a mini, right? Like, it works very well.
Wow.
Having the extruder right above the hot end improves the mini print quality, but you have to turn off the linear advance that it's built into its Bowden tube.
Yeah.
that most people probably don't realize their Prusa Mini has linear advance enabled, but it's crucial to getting good quality prints out of it. And also, why you would never put TPU into the Bowden tube.
Right.
You also really should never put TPU on a belt printer. I've had my TPU parts curl all the way around.
Wow.
And then make it back up to the top to get printed on again. I'm like mildly impressed, but not in a good way.
Not useful, not particularly useful. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, if your parts are flexible and your bed is flexible, how do you convince them to depart ways?
Or convince them to stay in place until you're done.
Yeah, like since
I see what you're saying. They're so flexible that they just stayed on the print bed the whole time, and
it rolled right around.
Well, like have a big rubber band of TPU on your printer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well,
but I love printing TPU parts. I print a lot of stuff for my kids, and the TPU is hard to damage. So
yes,
for the most part, I have a Mark III that is, I don't know if it's seen anything but TPU in quite a while. And since I have an XL and the X1 Carbon, that's where I do a majority of my printing, just because the quality of life and ease of use on them is so nice. Using Prusa Connect or Bamboo's, do they have a name for their Connect feature? Bamboo Cloud.
It's just Bamboo Slicer. Let me see here. I'll confirm that. It's Bamboo Studio. But
yeah, just send to the printer, and it's like, "Do you want me to start printing?" I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. I had a hard time imagining that it could get much easier than the Duet kind of click and go web-based interface. But yeah, Bamboo has definitely done it. So modifying Prusa Minis is where is like your happy place right now for 3D printing.
I've got the Mini. Like, I don't have any future plans on what to do on the Mini. I'm eyeballing the larger printers, and I'm trying to think of better ways to keep a large belt flat. The bigger your belt, the harder it is to keep it flat, the whole area. Did make a bit of a tank tread belt on my older Core XY. It's working reasonably well, but I can't quite get it to maintain the flatness that I want.
You're right. Huh. Well,
it's one of those, like, I'm not sure if I should be iterating on that idea or trying a different idea, but.
Well, I mean, you got plenty of time, and it looks like you still can walk through your basement. So just keep working on it.
There's a lot of.
You'll get there.
I think me and Paul should have a competition on who has the most cluttered office. Mine is
no,
you
got that. You're way off. Mine's is crazy. I mean, I've got
the conveyor belt.
A little bit.
I mean,
there's even a didgeridoo in my basement. Nobody
I have an ancient recumbent bicycle sitting upside down because I'm trying to figure out how hydraulic brakes work.
Okay.
It's important to me that the bike has brakes before I ride it, although obviously it wasn't because I rode it, but it became important to me as I was riding it, so now I'm trying to... It's fun to jump into projects where you don't quite know what you're doing, but...
Right. And risking life.
Plenty of stuff around.
That's the big part of it, too. I mean, it's not exciting unless you can burn something down or maybe break something, so hey. But hold on a second, you've got hydraulic brakes on your recumbent bike?
Yeah.
And did it come that way originally, or is that an upgrade for you?
No, it came that way.
Really?
I mean, this is a little Hayes.
Okay.
A Bike E.
Right.
Goodness.
It's an electric bike as well?
No, it's just a Bike E.
Okay.
Yeah, the E doesn't stand for electric. It's just E.
Yeah, it's the one. It's the one after D. So just keep going.
It was a neighbor gave it to me, and I was like, I also assumed it was an electric bike, and then I realized there's no batteries or motors, so it's not.
Right. Well, hey, here's to learning more stuff.
Yeah,
this is great.
One of the disc brakes mostly works. Right. but it doesn't squeeze hard enough on the brake rotors.
Well,
It's the kind of thing where
Paul,
3D printing's not quite there.
I hear you. Good stuff. All right. Well, Vicky, is there any, that we've chewed up an hour.
Oh yeah, we sure did.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we needed to ask Paul?
I think I'm good.
Good.
But if we can hop back to messy offices, I do want to give a shout out to my dog Neffy. Like, no matter how messy my office gets, she always finds a way to get into her little bed and stay with me.
Looks very comfy back there.
Oh my goodness, she's been in here the whole time too. I just noticed it.
Wonderful. It's always good to have company. Always good to have company.
Yes. I did finally install an automatic closer on my door up there, just a spring closer, so the cats would stop opening the door and visiting my printers.
Yeah, major cause of print failures, cats.
They would take a nap on the Delta, and then when it tried to home, it would just pop the effector off. And I'm like, doesn't this bother you, cat? Doesn't hurt?
So that's a quick viewer question from Karen, who, if you're also viewing and you're not subscribed to Karen's YouTube channel, I would highly recommend it. I think she does a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Who has the most mugs from 3D printing brands? It's not me, because I break all my mugs.
I don't. Well, I have this a very, very brief failed 3D printing brand, Circle, spelled out horrifyingly badly. I don't think I have any others. I think it's just the Maker Gear.
I don't have.
Not like I don't want them. It's just,
I don't have any mugs. I'm an academic, so they don't send mugs to people who push paper around. But maybe one day I'll get a mug. We'll see.
I don't know. I would take any mug. I love.
There you go.
It's my love language. I love little coffee mugs.
I think that's going to be a good Maker Faire handout. Maybe we'll have spread the word and be like, hey, let's make mugs for Maker Faire.
Yeah. I had on East Coast. I still have an East Coast Rip Rap Festival mug back there. I loved it, but it's got a little fine crack, so it leaks. So I just haven't hold things. And then, Paul, there was a viewer comment about you that they think you have a need to tinker with everything, which seems to be the case because we've barely hit the tip of the iceberg on things Paul gets into. You do the cardboard regatta, don't you? I think I saw on Facebook. Didn't you do something where you pushed an airplane on the runway at Dulles?
We did we pulled it. It was the plane pole.
Yeah, the Dulles airplane pole.
So when you do that, it was a 737 and there were 25 of us, but there's 2 pilots in there making sure you don't pull it too far. So you pull it a bit and then they put the brakes on. And you're like, oh, maybe give us a heads up that you're going to put the brakes on. Like, and then they had another team pull it back the other way.
Well, there you go. But
we have cardboard regattas coming up. The Kinetic sculpture race in Baltimore is coming up too, and I think that's May the 4th. I try and build something for that.
All right, and that is the Kinetic sculpture is land-based things that move. Like if you're pedaling on a bike or maybe a scooter.
Well, it's all-terrain Kinetic sculpture.
Okay.
It's got to go through the Baltimore Harbor too. If it doesn't float, you got a bad way.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a race. It's art for the sake of art. So I usually do a lot of 3D printing for it because I have the 3D printers, but a lot more welding because you don't want your bikes to fall apart. And I don't know. I'm really tempted to try my hand at the carbon CF nylon and see how strong the parts really are in terms of can you actually ride on them. Right.
Well, good luck with that. Looking forward to it. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that we can probably put this one in the archive of our Prime Tuesdays, Vicky. I really want to thank you, Paul, for coming on and being our guest on How Would You Slice That. I have really enjoyed the opportunity to learn about the intricacies of belt printing, and also how, and also, get a feel for the mechanics and things that you have built and are continuing to build as part of your practice. We really, I value as a member of the maker community. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
And a few little housekeeping things. So as you know, How Would You Slice That is on Tuesdays that are prime numbers. Our next episode is going to be February 13th. Our guest is going to be Steve McDonald, which I met him at Earth 2023. And it looks like we're going to be talking about rings. So we might be delving into orientation and strength. And if you have any rings that you would like us to discuss, go ahead and let us know. We have a form that you can fill out at howwouldyouslicethat.com. I think I have that. Yep. And if Karen is still on and still watching, I want to point out that I got the year fixed in our little ticker banner. So it does say February 13th, 2024. All right. Yeah, Paul, thank you so much. These were 3 printers that I've never worked with, so I know I learned a lot, absorbed a lot, and yeah, very, very wonderful having you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right, until next time.
And viewers, thank you. Thank you, everybody who commented and watched. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. See you on the 13th.